They said jets were impossible, that Britain's skies would never host a turbojet. But in 1941, Frank Whittle's engine roared to life, and the Gloster Meteor streaked above England. Across the Channel, Germany was building its own secret, the Messerschmitt Me 262. Two nations, one sky, a race that would change aerial combat forever. Every roar of these engines tells a story of ambition, innovation, and danger. Subscribe to TRC Aviation to witness the untold truths of aviation history, meticulously reconstructed for those who crave fact and cinematic thrill. These stories are rare. Don't miss the next chapter in humanity's flight into the unknown. The English sky was quiet, deceptively so. Below, London braced for another wave of V-1 attacks. Those screaming doodlebugs had already claimed hundreds. But above, a new kind of predator was preparing to enter the airspace, a machine the world had never seen before. The Gloster Meteor, Britain's first operational jet, gleamed under the low morning sun, its engines a promise of speed, of survival. The roar was not just mechanical, it was revolutionary. Every rivet, every panel whispered years of relentless experimentation, of Frank Whittle's vision finally taking flight. Subscribe to TRC Aviation to witness the untold truths of aviation history, meticulously reconstructed for those who crave fact and cinematic thrill. These stories are rare. Don't miss the next chapter in humanity's flight into the unknown. Flight Lieutenant James Hawk. Hawkins gripped the controls, eyes flicking over dials that still felt alien. The jet accelerated faster than any plane he'd ever known, cutting through clouds like a blade. Below, the patchwork fields of England blurred, and yet Hawk's mind raced faster than the engines. Reports had come in. A German jet, Me 262, had been spotted over the Channel. Faster, deadlier, the Luftwaffe's secret weapon. The stakes were no longer hypothetical. Britain's skies were about to host a duel for the future of air combat. The Meteor trembled under sudden gusts. Hawk adjusted the throttle, feeling the vibration in his bones, a rhythm that could make or break him. Every flight of this jet was a test, not just of machinery, but of the men who dared sit inside it. Across the water, German engineers were pushing limits of their own. Messerschmitt Me 262s were nearing operational readiness, and pilots trained in the shadow of Hitler's ambitions were ready to fight like hell. Hawk's wingman, Corporal Davies, radioed a status check. The sound was tinny, almost fragile against the howl of jet engines, but it carried weight. All systems green. Feels like flying a lightning bolt, Davies said. Hawk allowed a tight smile. The air was electric with potential and peril. Somewhere across the Channel, their counterparts would be thinking the same thing, believing the skies were theirs by right. The first sortie was meant to intercept V-1s, but intelligence suggested the Luftwaffe might push Me 262s over the Channel sooner than expected. Hawk's pulse quickened. Each second could be the difference between life and death. The Meteor was fast, yes, but it was new, experimental. Every mission was a gamble, and the Germans had experience, cunning, and the deadliest jet engines Europe had ever seen. As the squadron climbed higher, clouds fractured into streaks of gold and gray. A shadow flickered over the horizon. Hawk froze mid-breath. At first, he thought it was a cloud, but then it moved. Sleek, angular, terrifying. The outline of a Messerschmitt Me 262. Faster than anything Hawk had ever flown. Faster than any human instinct could predict. The distance closed in seconds. Hawk's hand tightened on the throttle. Time slowed. He could hear the distant hum of another jet, the other side of the war looming closer with every heartbeat. This was the moment the future of aerial combat would reveal itself. And then something exploded in the sky ahead, a flash that blinded for a fraction of a second. Hawk's stomach dropped. The first encounter between Britain's Meteor and Germany's Me 262 had begun, and no one knew who would survive the opening exchange. The sky above the Channel was a canvas of steel and cloud, streaked with the golden sunlight of late afternoon. Hawk's Meteor sliced through it, engines screaming in protest and promise. Below, the endless water churned quietly, a deceptive calm hiding the chaos above. Every pilot knew the air was no longer just a battlefield. It was a test of courage, of invention, of survival itself. Reports had confirmed the presence of the Me-262 over northern France. Intelligence suggested it was still in early deployment, but early did not mean harmless. The Germans had trained their pilots for years, while Britain's jet flyers were still learning the limits of their machines. Hawk could feel the weight of that disparity, the tension pressing on his shoulders like gravity. The Meteor shuddered as he climbed to intercept altitude. He adjusted the throttle, letting the plane find its rhythm. The jet responded like a living thing, its metal skin humming with energy. Hawk's mind raced ahead. Calculations of speed, altitude, fuel, engagement angles. Every fraction of a second counted. Somewhere below, one debris might still be burning, but up here, the real threat was flesh, steel, and untested technology. Davies radioed in. 2 bogeys 10 miles out. Fast. Too fast. His voice was calm, but Hawk could hear the undercurrent of fear. The Me-262s had a top speed the Meteor could not yet match. Britain's first operational jet fighter was a marvel, but it had never faced combat against an enemy equally revolutionary. Hawk's eyes scanned the horizon. Shadows flickered. Sunlight reflected off metal. The Me-262 appeared almost suddenly, a phantom tearing through clouds, sleek and deadly. Its nose guns glinted, trained without hesitation. Hawk's pulse spiked. This was no longer theory. This was war. He banked sharply, feeling the Meteor's limits test against the wind. The Germans were precise, disciplined, calculating. Hawk had instinct honed from thousands of hours in prop planes, but the jet speed demanded new reflexes. Every maneuver had consequences measured in milliseconds. One wrong move, and the outcome would be fatal. Machine and man danced a dangerous ballet. Missiles were still decades away. It was guns, guts, and gravity now. Tracers lit the air in deadly lines. Hawk fired, rounds screaming toward the shadowy silhouette of the Me-262. A hit? Possibly. Too distant to tell. The enemy pilot adjusted, banking away, disappearing into a veil of cloud. Minutes stretched into eternity. Hawk's lungs burned, his hands cramped around controls. Yet the adrenaline sharpened him, made him see things he never could before. The Meteor responded to his every thought, every push and pull. It was faster than he imagined, yes, but the Me-262 was faster still. The chase was no longer about interception. It was about survival, about proving that Britain's jet could hold its ground. Davies' voice cracked through the radio. "Hawk, you see that?" Hawk followed the line of sight. Below, a shadow moved against the water. Another Me-262, coming up fast, flanking them. The sky had shifted. What had seemed like a simple interception was becoming a trap. Hawks got twisted. Fuel calculations, altitude adjustments, maneuvering, all collided in his mind. The Meteor could outturn the enemy in some situations, but speed was slipping away. The Germans had mastered it, and now Hawk realized how fragile victory could be. A single mistake would mean death, not just for him, but for the squadron following him. He tightened his grip. Ahead, the second Me-262 was closing in faster than physics should allow. Hawk's heart raced, engine screaming in harmony with his fear. Time seemed to distort. Seconds stretched like minutes. And then, without warning, a tracer round ripped past the Meteor's cockpit, a razor of heat and light inches from Hawk's face. The sky had become a living, breathing enemy. Hawk's eyes widened. This was no training exercise. This was the first real test of Britain's jet against Germany's ultimate air weapon. And the sky was about to erupt. The air was thick with smoke and tracer fire. Hawk's Meteor shuddered violently as rounds tore across the fuselage. The sky had turned into a furnace, alive with speed, metal, and instinct. Each pilot was a single heartbeat against the roar of the engines. Every decision measured in milliseconds. There was no room for hesitation. Only movement, reaction, survival. Hawk's eyes scanned the horizon, searching for the glint of Me-262s weaving through clouds. He banked sharply, feeling the jet's limits push against physics. The Meteor responded, trembling under acceleration, a creature of steel and fire. Below, the channel glittered, serene and indifferent, mocking the chaos above. The Germans were relentless. Every maneuver they executed was precise, almost preternatural, a testament to years of training and the raw power of their machines. Davies radioed urgently, his voice tense. "Hawk, they're splitting up, flanking from both sides." Hawks got twisted. Fuel calculations, angles, and speed converged into a storm of thought. He needed a strategy, a way to survive. Every second wasted meant inches lost, a fatal mistake waiting to happen. The Meteor was fast, but was it fast enough? The first Me-262 surged upward, engine screaming, shadows dancing over Hawk's canopy. He fired his guns, tracers cutting the sky like threads of silver. The enemy pilot banked, narrowly avoiding a hail of bullets, retaliating in kind. A burst of fire lit the Meteor's tail, a strike too close for comfort. Hawk yanked the controls, barely stabilizing the jet. Sparks flew across the fuselage. The machine groaned, metal screaming against metal, but it held. Time fractured into instinct and reaction. Hawk remembered every flight hour, every drill, every moment of preparation. Yet nothing could truly prepare a man for this. The first real combat of Britain's first operational jet against Germany's deadliest fighter. He felt fear, yes, but beneath it surged adrenaline, clarity, the strange exhilaration of surviving against impossible odds. Above, the second Me-262 had joined the dance, its nose guns locked on Hawk's tail, a streak of death glinting in the sunlight. Hawk rolled, dived, and climbed, weaving through clouds as bullets tore past. A sudden gust shook the Meteor, throwing him off balance for a heartbeat that felt like an eternity. Then came the flash. Davies had gone silent. Hawk's stomach dropped. His wingman gone? Or trapped in the storm of fire and speed? Smoke trailed the Meteor as Hawk adjusted the throttle. The first Me-262, sensing an opening, dove aggressively. Hawk countered, using the Meteor's superior low-altitude handling, spiraling through the air with calculated precision. The enemy pilot's face, barely visible through canopy, was a mask of fury and determination. Hawk's pulse hammered in sync with the jet's engines. Then, as the jets crossed paths again, Hawk saw it, a glimmer of opportunity. The Me-262, overextended in its dive, had momentarily exposed a blind spot. Hawk aimed, fired. Sparks erupted on the enemy's fuselage, smoke curling in thin ribbons. Victory? Maybe, but there was no time to celebrate. Another Me-262 appeared, this one faster, smarter, cutting off Hawk's escape. The sky contracted around him. Metal screamed, engines roared, bullets streaked. Hawk's mind raced. Climb, dive, bank, evade. He realized the fight was no longer just about machines. It was about human will, split-second decisions, and a stubborn refusal to surrender to the inevitability of death. And then, something hit the Meteor's wing. A violent jolt, a shudder through the frame, alarm screaming inside the cockpit. Hawk's vision blurred, and a cold realization struck him. The jet, the marvel of British engineering, was failing mid-combat. Hawk's eyes widened. The sky had turned from battleground to tomb. And somewhere beyond the clouds, the Me-262s were closing in for the final strike. The Meteor shuddered violently, metal groaning under the stress of battle. Hawk's hands were white-knuckled on the controls. Every muscle coiled, every thought a razor-sharp calculation. Smoke trailed from the left wing, thin at first, then thickening, curling into the sky like a living warning. Time stretched and compressed all at once. Seconds felt like hours as the Me-262 circled, predators sizing up their prey. Hawk pushed the throttle forward. The Meteor responded with raw, untested fury, a machine strained to defy the limits of its own design. The first Me-262 had recovered from Hawk's last maneuver and was coming back, guns trained and ready. The second jet, faster, more precise, cut off Hawk's retreat, forcing him to climb steeply over the channel. Clouds whipped past, jagged and blinding, each one a potential cover or trap. His mind raced. Fuel was low, the wing was damaged, and yet there was no turning back. The first encounter had been a test. This was the crucible. Every pilot knew the odds. Every engineer feared the consequences. But Hawk had something the Germans did not. Instinct honed by thousands of hours in prop fighters, combined with the raw, untamed power of a jet no one else had flown in combat before. He banked sharply, diving between cloud banks. The Me-262 on his tail fired a burst of rounds, tracers screaming past, igniting the air. Hawk rolled, narrowly avoiding a fatal hit. Sparks rained from the Meteor's tail as he climbed, the engine straining, screaming in protest. The wind tore at the fuselage, yet the jet held. Somehow it held. Davy's voice crackled over the radio, distant tense. "Hawk, I'm not sure how much longer I can. Static cut him off." Hawk's stomach twisted. He couldn't afford to think of loss. Not now. Survival, strategy, and precision were the only currencies in this deadly airspace. Then came the unexpected twist. A sudden squall of wind, clouds forming rapidly, created chaos in the formation. The Me-262s, accustomed to straight-line speed, were forced to adjust. Hawk saw an opening, a narrow corridor between cloud banks, and seized it without hesitation. His reflexes, honed in countless sorties, guided him perfectly. The first Me-262 overshot, disappearing into the clouds, momentarily blinded. Hawk fired. Sparks erupted from the enemy's fuselage. A small victory, but a vital one. But the second Me-262 was relentless. It dove aggressively, aiming for Hawk's damaged wing. The Meteor shuddered violently, alarms blaring. Hawk's stomach dropped as he realized the severity of the damage. Control surfaces were failing, hydraulics under strain. Escape was no longer an option. Only confrontation remained. He pushed the jet to the extreme, climbing steeply to gain altitude. The Germans followed, and for a moment, the sky became a theater of speed and fire. Hawk felt something extraordinary, a synchronization of man and machine, instinct and engineering. The Meteor responded to his every thought, a living extension of his will. Tracers streaked past, engines roared. The clouds swirled around him in chaotic beauty. And then he saw it. The second Me-262 miscalculated. Its angle slightly wrong, nose guns exposed. Hawk fired. Sparks flew, smoke twisted. The German jet veered, struggling. Hawk felt a moment of triumph, but it was fleeting. Another burst from the remaining Me-262 struck the Meteor's engine, a violent explosion that shook the plane. Hawk gritted his teeth. The jet was faltering, his options shrinking by the second. Below, the channel stretched endlessly, indifferent to human drama. The Me-262 closed in for what seemed like the final strike, shadowing the Meteor with lethal precision. Hawk's heart pounded. Every instinct screamed. Every calculation mattered. And then, something unimaginable occurred, a sudden, deafening roar from behind, a new variable in the deadly equation, one Hawk had not anticipated. The sky erupted once more, the outcome uncertain, the danger closer than ever. The sky had transformed into a war zone, clouds and sunlight shredded by bullets, tracer fire, and the roar of engines. Hawk's Meteor shuddered violently. Every bolt and panel a testament to British engineering pushed to its absolute limits. Smoke trailed from the left wing, a thin, angry snake curling in the wind. The channel below shimmered, indifferent to the human struggle above. The Me-262 closed in, faster and more precise than anything Hawk had faced. He adjusted the throttle, the jet responding like a living thing. Every vibration in his hands a whisper of danger. The first salvo tore past, a streak of fire inches from his cockpit. Hawk's eyes narrowed. Survival was no longer theory. It was instinct calculation and sheer will. Then the unexpected happened. From behind the clouds, a second Meteor squadron emerged, engines screaming, formation perfect. Britain had arrived in force. The Me-262s faltered, caught off guard by the sudden reinforcement. Hawk's pulse surged. Hope. But he had no time to celebrate. His jet was damaged, fuel low, and every maneuver strained the weakened frame. Hawk rolled sharply, diving through a break in clouds. The first Me-262 followed, miscalculating the Meteor's trajectory. Hawk fired, tracer rounds ripping into the enemy fuselage. Sparks exploded, and the German jet spiraled away, smoke curling like a phantom. Relief flashed briefly across Hawk's face. But the second Me-262 was relentless, closing fast, its pilot skilled, calculating, determined. The double climax began. Hawk executed a high-G maneuver, the Meteor groaning under the stress, smoke thickening, engine screaming. The second Me-262 overcommit, banking too sharply. Hawk seized a moment, lining up a perfect shot. Fire streaked through the enemy cockpit. The German jet shuddered, then fell, spiraling toward the channel. Hawk barely had time to process the victory before his own jet protested violently. Metal screamed. Alarms blared. Hawk fought the controls, sweat and fear mingling. The left wing was barely holding. Every instinct screamed, eject, but he couldn't. Not yet. Survival demanded more than instinct. It demanded courage. The Meteor's engines roared, carrying him as if Shearwell had transformed it into a living guardian. He banked toward the channel. The remaining Me-262s retreating, outnumbered and outmatched by the sudden British reinforcement. Hawk's squadron pressed the advantage, cutting a path through the sky. For the first time, the revolution of jet combat revealed itself. Speed, precision, human courage fused with raw mechanical power. And then came the haunting echo. Below, debris floated in the channel. Fragments of jets, wings, lives intertwined with the history being forged above. Hawk's chest heaved. The battle was over, yet the cost was palpable. The first clash of jet combat had claimed pilots on both sides, machines that were marvels of engineering, and a future forever changed. Hawk's eyes lingered on the horizon. The sun was setting, casting long shadows over the channel, golden light mingling with smoke. He knew this was only the beginning. Jet aviation had been born in fire, forged in combat, and the lessons of the day would echo in every future dogfight. The Meteor shuddered one last time, engines whining, smoke trailing like a ghost. Hawk exhaled, gripping the controls, eyes wet with sweat and something heavier, pride, fear, and the weight of history. The first jets had collided in combat. Britain and Germany had tested their mettle, and the sky had never been the same. Hawk whispered under his breath, barely audible over the dying roar of engines. We've flown into the future, but the sky remembers every soul it takes. And the channel below remained silent, indifferent, a mirror to the chaos that had passed above.